Welcome to lesson 7 of Fundamentals of Chemistry. In this lesson, we'll be looking at SLOs 1.2.9 to 1.2.11, which is define valency, and we'll be looking at making the formulas of compounds by using the valency of the elements. What is valency, boys? Valency is combining power of an element or a molecule. What do you mean by that? We all know that elements react with each other. Okay, so the power with which they combine with other elements, that combining power is called the valency. Why valency is important? Because with the help of valency we can find the formula of a compound. Valency depends on the number of electrons in the last shell of an atom. So the last shell itself is called valence shell, and the electrons present in that valence shell are called valence electrons. The valency of any element depends on the valence shell, valence electrons of that element. If atom loses electron, it has a positive charge, because whenever electrons are lost, the atom forms a positive ion. This positive ion is called cation. When atoms gain electron, they have a negative charge, and the ion formed is the negative ion, also called anion. We have a sodium atom, which belongs to group 1, and group 1 elements have one electron. Can you see that electron going to chlorine? Once the sodium loses its electron, it has a positive charge, it forms a cation. Okay, sodium positive charge आ जाता है इसके ऊपर, और it forms a cation. And the electron which goes to the chlorine, once it goes to the chlorine has its complete last shell, उसकी last shell complete हो गई, and as a result chlorine has a negative charge and it forms an anion. So what is happening in this? We have sodium atom losing electron, we have chlorine atom gaining the electron. Sodium gets a positive charge, chlorine gets a negative charge. Both ions bond with each other and energy is released. And when the ions bond with each other, they form a compound which is NaCl in this case. So with the help of charges, with the help of valencies, we actually find out the formula of the compound. We actually have the compound, that is NaCl. Now let's look at the periodic table, have a brief look. We all know we have 8 groups in the periodic table, and we have the transition metals over here. Okay, transition metals को we usually do not deal, but we deal with the 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, 5A, 6A, 7A and 8A group. So these are your groups, and each group is important because the group number actually tells you the valency of the elements present in that group. Let's suppose we have group 1A. This is group 1A, and all the elements in group 1A have 1 plus charge. Why? Because they lose 1 electron. Similarly, on group 2A we have 2 plus charge because they all lose 2 electron. We have 3 plus charge on group 3A. Some elements in group 4 have 4 positive charge, and some have 4 negative charge. And the charges then start to decline from here. This is group 5A, and group 5A has 3 negative charge. Why 3 negative charge? Because all the elements in this group, they gain 3 electrons. Then we have 2 minus charge on group 6A elements, 1 minus charge on group 7A elements, and we have no charge on group 8A because they do not form bonds and they do not react. So why did I tell you this? Because these are the valencies. If you remember these valencies, with the help of the valency, we can find out the compound formed by these elements. So always remember, whenever you have to make the compound, you should know which element is it, which group does it belong to, and what is the charge on that group. Okay, so let's suppose if I ask you about sodium, you will tell me that it belongs to group 1A and the charge on group 1A is 1 plus. So sodium forms 1 plus ion. Okay, and let's say if I talk about chlorine, then you are going to tell me that it belongs to group 7A, and group 7 has what charge? 1 negative. So chlorine कौन सा ion बनाता है? Chlorine 1 negative ion बनाता है. Okay. Similarly, if I ask you nitrogen, so you are going to tell me that it belongs to group 5A and it has a 3 negative charge, and उसका जो ion होता है, it has a 3 negative charge. So you are going to write N and 3 negative on that. So you have to learn these valencies in order to make the formula and in order to make their ions. We have some molecular anions also. What are molecular ions? You have learned that molecular ions are the ions which are formed by two or more different atoms. Okay, like for example in this case the ions that I showed you were atomic ions. पीछे जो हमने periodic table से element से जो ion बनता है that is atomic ion, and two different atoms से जो ion बनता है that is molecular ion. For example in this case we have nitrogen and oxygen combined and we have one negative charge on that. What is that ion called? It is called nitrate, and the charge on that is one negative. Similarly we have OH ion which is called hydroxide, and the charge on that is 1 negative. So we have some some anions with 1 negative charge. We have 2 ions, sulfate and carbonate, with 2 negative charge, and phosphate ion which has the formula PO4 has a 3 negative charge. So you have to learn the names of these ions and their charges as well, okay, because these ions will not be provided to you, the charges will not be provided to you, so you will have to learn the charges of all these common molecular ions. And this is also very helpful if you go on the higher levels in university level. You will not have to learn that again, because these are very common and you should know them. We have some common transition metals. हमने transition metals पढ़े. सारे transition metals हम नहीं पढ़ते. We only deal with some important ones like Ag, silver, which has a charge of 1 plus. Pb has a charge of 1 plus. Fe has a charge of 2 plus, 3 or 3 plus. Sometimes the charge on iron is 2 plus and sometimes it is 3 plus. We have zinc. It has a charge of 2 plus. This is Hg. Hg is mercury. The charge on mercury is 1 plus or sometimes 2 plus. Cu is copper. The charge on that is 1 plus and sometimes 2 plus. So boys, these are some common transition metals. What is transition metal? Transition metals are those which have a variable valency. Variable valency means they don't have a fixed valency. Transition means which can change. Okay, transition का मतलब होता है change होना. So they have different valencies. Iron can have different valencies at a time. It can be 2 plus or it can be 3 plus. So these are some common transition metals which you should also know. Let's take an example of formula making. We have learned this in class 8. We have to make the formula with the help of these two ions. This is the cation because it has a positive charge. This is the anion which has a negative charge, and we have to make the formula of Ca2 plus and Cl1 minus. What are the steps? First step is we cancel the charges. What is happening? We are going to cancel the charges, positive with the negative charge, so only numbers are left, charges are gone. Then we cross the numbers. हम हमेशा numbers को cross कर देते हैं. You all know that Ca का जो 2 है वो Cl के ऊपर चला जाएगा और Cl का जो 1 है वो Ca के ऊपर आ जाएगा. So as a result, what is going to happen? We'll be left with a formula which is CaCl2. Okay, 1 आया है यहाँ पे Ca के नीचे, लेकिन हम 1 लिखते नहीं हैं. Because that is not important. And then we have the third step, put bracket on molecular ion. You have to check if there is any molecular ion. अभी हम पीछे molecular ions पढ़ कर आए हैं. अगर आपको कोई molecular ion नज़र आता है, so you are going to put a bracket and then this number will come. But Cl is not a molecular ion, so this step is not applicable over here. Let's take another example. We have two ions. We have calcium 2 plus ion and we have sulfate 2 minus ion. What we have to do? We have to cancel the charges first. So actually over here in this case we have 2 plus and 2 minus. So whenever you have same charges, we have 2 plus, we have 2 minus. Whole charges will be cancelled out. Okay, so 2 plus will cancel out with 2 minus. Okay, so whenever you have same charges, you cancel out the whole charges and you are left with only the elements which is CaSO4. Okay, so in this case the formula will be CaSO4. So next step will not apply because this is the only thing we are left with. CaSO4 is calcium sulfate. Okay, you should also know the names of the compounds formed. We have another example. We have Ca2 plus and OH1 minus, Ca and OH1 minus. So what are you going to do? We are same steps. Cancel the charges, cross the numbers, and then you are going to get. And as you can see, there is a molecular ion. So we are going to apply the third step over here. The molecular ion is OH. Because OH is formed by two different atoms, so this is a molecular ion. and whenever a number is shifted on the molecular ion, we put the bracket on the molecular ion first. So it will look like this. We are going to put the bracket on OH and then that number that we have from the calcium. Okay, so this is the formula of calcium hydroxide. Calcium, this is first part is calcium, the second part is hydroxide, the name is calcium hydroxide. Let's look at the fourth example. We have aluminium 3 plus and SO4 2 minus. Same steps, cancel charges, cross the numbers, and we are going to get something like that. But we have a molecular ion in this case as well. So what are you going to do? You're going to put a bracket on SO4 because SO4 is the molecular ion. So once you put bracket on SO4, you're going to get that 3 out of the bracket, and this 3 is actually on whole of SO4. okay, this is aluminium sulfate. Some students get confused कि हमें 3 से 4 को multiply करना है. No, this is just the shifting of numbers. You don't have to multiply, you don't have to solve anything because it's not mathematics. This is formula making in chemistry. We have the task, which is you are provided with some anions and cations, and you have to make formulas with the help of these anions and cations and also name them. And we have another task. We are given with some names of the compounds. You have to write down their formulas. For example, in this case we have aluminium sulfate. You're going to write down aluminium. Charge on aluminium is 3 plus because aluminium belongs to group 3. So the charge on aluminium is 3 plus. Sulfate is the anion. Okay, anion, सल्फेट इज दी मॉलिकुलर एनाइन. मॉलिकुलर एनाइंस हमने अभी पीछे टेबल में पढ़ा है, उसमें सल्फेट है SO4. SO4 के ऊपर चार्ज कितना होता है 2 माइनस. वंस यू राइट दी कैटाइन एंड दी एनाइन, देन यू आर गोइंग टू मेक द फॉर्मूला ऑफ एल्यूमिनियम सल्फेट with the same steps following. Lithium oxide. Lithium is Li. Li belongs to group 1. The charge on lithium is 1 plus. Oxide is oxygen. Oxygen has a charge of 2 minus. So once you write Li 1 plus O2 minus, you are going to make the formula by following the same steps. Okay, I hope the video was helpful in making the chemical formulas. Meet you in the next lecture. Till then, bye bye. Allah Hafiz.